Welcome everybody to this afternoon's annual talk session, the second one of today. And we're happy to see so many of you. My name is Anke Kuipers. I'm the Director of Ecosystem Services and I will be facilitating this panel discussion today with some of our amazing tech leaders in the Netherlands in the semicon industry, which I think is one of the, well, it always has been one of the booming and great innovations coming from the Netherlands actually, but I think recently those opportunities have only increased. So today we're going to be talking about from European IP to global impact, building a competitive deep tech stack, diving a little bit further into this whole Draghi report that was hot last year, and like what results has that delivered to us the past year. And Europe has no shortage of deep tech breakthroughs, from sensors to RF, timing to AI, compute. We have world-class innovation. And the real question is, why does Europe still struggle to turn that IP into a global scale deployment? And today we're not discussing individual technologies, we're looking at the stack and what it takes to make it work at scale. So again, we have this great speaker. So I'm each gonna let you introduce yourself in short of what you do. So who are you, what layer of the stack you represent, and why it matters to Europe? So we can start with Jeroen.
Okay, I'm Jeroen van der Meulen from Semiblocks, and we develop a very precise clock. That is the lower part of the stack, because without the clock, no semicon will work. And why it's important for Europe? It's about safety, it's about encryption, it's about PNT solutions. And if you don't have that technology in Europe by yourself, and anything goes wrong in the world geopolitically, then you have an issue.
Okay.
Yes, so my name is Jeroen, co-founder and CEO of Eyeo, and we're an image sensor company that delivers 3 times better sensors than what a Sony or a Samsung can bring today. Now, why does it matter? Well, essentially every phone has 3 or 4 or more cameras inside. The cameras used here, it's basically all over the place. And there used to be a legacy in Europe, but as we all know, everything went away more into Asia and US, and now is really the time with this disruption, with this technology, we can actually bring that leadership back to Europe.
And my name is Jean Vieville. I'm working for Axelera AI. Axelera AI is the largest fabless AI semiconductor company in Europe today. We're a competitor of a very well-known company called NVIDIA. Our value proposition is to bring AI inference at the edge for very high performance, low cost, and low power consumption. And of course, we have a lot of other USPs that we'll discuss today, I'm sure.
And then I'm Mark Smorenburg. I'm product manager at Qualinx. We make a GNSS receiver. That's important for Europe because there are very little companies in Europe that make those receivers. And without positioning, whoever knows where we are, you can think of all kinds of applications where that's important. And that's what we do. We do that at very low power. We're not yet at your scale yet, but we hope to be there soon.
Okay. Wow, like I said, it's a really interesting group of companies here, all exhibitors here at the pavilion. And this order already shows quite a complete European hardware stack, at least. So I think that's quite an accomplishment. So all of you are interested in scaling and like making your business not only happening in the Netherlands, but worldwide. So where is the complexity in that? Like what does it make hard? Like, you know, you just from Axelera, you just had a funding of 250 million. Was this something complex to realize, or what is your experience with that, and what are you planning to do with this?
Sure. Thanks a lot for the question. Well, we're today providing an alternative to NVIDIA for AI inference. I think a lot of you here are, maybe it's the first time you hear about inference. In essence, inference is the art of making run AI. So you have the training that is made ahead of time, and then you use your training in the real life. This is called inference. This is what we see on a daily basis when you use ChatGPT, etc. For us, on a business-wise, we have a chip that is extremely powerful, that is a very good competition to other solutions on the market. We are today the only solution that is European, and the challenge has really been like how to bring customers that have been using NVIDIA for 10, 15 years to accept to use another alternative that is working, that has the software stack available. And now we see very good traction commercially. That's why also we are able to close this kind of funding round, to be fully transparent.
So that funding will then be used for the marketing of making it more aware to people that are currently using NVIDIA to start using your chips, basically. Is that the idea? Summarized?
Yes, and also designing chips is very capital intensive. I think we all here are aware of this. So we need to continue growing the company. We need to expand our product portfolio. We have already announced Europa. Europa is our second chip, which will be an expansion of our product portfolio. So Metis is very focused on embedded. Europa is more towards premium edge with robotics and data centers. So it will be a continuity of our existing product portfolio to revitalize, to be providing an alternative for NVIDIA on inference.
And Mark, you just mentioned, hey, you're kind of following behind, or like following Axelera, and hey, you're on your way also to get to that level. But what is stalling? What makes it complicated? Because I can imagine you have on one hand the need of keeping on innovating, developing, and at the same time selling. What makes it complicated for you to scale Qualinx?
I think it's a bit the same. One is to find money, because deep tech, silicon, is a different beast. It doesn't, like software, take a couple of months before you have a product. It's years of investing, and still then, is there a revenue? So investors are a lot more reluctant to actually put their money, because the timelines to earn it back are so much longer. So that's one of the things holding us back. And the second, and the neighbor was already mentioning that, how to convince a customer, the first of a kind. I don't want to be the guinea pig for that. So what would really help is a government or an investment company linked to a government that actually says, you know what, on the procurement side, we're going to help you. We're going to make sure that your products are bought for the first 2 years, for instance, and that would definitely help us.
More launching clients, basically, also from a national perspective.
Yes, and governments account for about 14% of all the procurement in Europe.
Wow.
Even if they spent a little bit of their money, that would definitely help small companies like ours.
Okay, very interesting. And the Semiblocks, Jeroen, you recently, I think your product has become market fit, so you're ready to launch and share your timers with the world. Do you find the similar situation with finding clients to use it, or what is a bottleneck for you in scaling the business?
Yeah, finding the customers to do your first field test with. And like you said before, nobody wants to be the first one. They say, if you have a proven field test, then come back to us. And the majority of those companies are working for European governments. And they're just looking like, I don't want to have the risk, I don't want to have the investment costs, but I do want to have the European money. So Europe can play a role there.
And okay, so to find like a bit to what Qualinx say as well, but do you have a similar target audience for the timing? Is government one of your target audiences?
Well, yes, we have a product that is active in dual use, so defense can use it as well. And by that, we do offer a great role in the European sovereignty. So it's also important for Europe to act there. There's no other company in Europe doing what we do.
Okay. So maybe the next question for you, what is the biggest misconception policymakers have about scaling deep tech?
So I think essentially a bit similar to Axelera and the other guys. So we are competing with the big players in the world, the Sonys, the Samsungs in our case. And so it means that we need to have access to the best talent, to sufficient money to scale fast and to really go into this market. And then I think what is holding us back, and maybe what's also then something that in the mindset has to change, is if we want to do this out of Europe, we really have to be able to tap into all of that potential without too many hurdles. Okay. And I think I think from policymakers, probably they think more that there is kind of a one Europe, whereas what we see daily is that each time you cross a border for whatever reason, recruitment, money, whatever, it's always a complex story with a lot of regulations, and we're basically competing with ourselves internally and amongst countries and not thinking as a one Europe.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, I'm actually convinced there is more than enough money in Europe. We have the best talent in Europe. So everything is available, but we just make it extremely difficult for ourselves to keep it in Europe and to scale it from within Europe.
So any advice on the Dutch government on how they can then make the talent more accessible, or what can be stimulating on making a move in that?
Also, first of all, I think it's not only a Dutch government issue. So I think it has to be something that is thought of across borders. There has to be a more similar vision. There has to be for example, we started in the Netherlands, but we also have an office in Belgium, and we have people coming over from France, and it's unimaginable how complex that actually is to recruit and to work cross borders. So I think it has to be a vision shared across the borders. It's not about who is collecting which social security in which country. It has to be about, as Europe, we can scale, and how do we organize that as one single entity instead of each country for themselves.
Yeah, I see you nodding, Jean.
I'm
So the
100%
Europe has to collaborate more on that. So think about not only the financial pool of money, but also the work group of talent from a more European perspective, and making that accessible in a more easy way.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people are speaking about sovereignty, especially these days, is quite of the essence. With the geopolitical and everything happening these days, it's very important. And one of the reasons we are successful is because we don't think as Italian, we don't think as Dutch, as French or Spanish, we think as European. You can't compete with, companies like Nvidia if you think as, okay, we're just Dutch. No, we need to think European, we need to work together, and we need to make sure the politicians are also not having their own agenda. I know we have a lot of members in the European Commission, but it's very important that we think as a simplified, centralized agenda for all members and all companies, so we can really bring technology, because we have a phenomenal technology. If you look at the 4 companies here, the stack of technology is just incredible.
Yeah, the technology doesn't seem the problem, and the intelligence doesn't seem the problem either. It's really the matter of connecting to the right resources and making the connection to the resources more easy. So that's very interesting. So from IP to deployment, what must exist in the ecosystem before your technology can scale in the real world?
I think everything we need is already there. It's, as the neighbors were saying, it's much more about simplifying things within Europe, but that's in the mind of, 360 million people. We're competing against one China, one America, and then there's 26 Europes. That's our biggest hurdle. Yeah. And anything that helps making one Europe is helpful to us.
Yeah. Okay. I see you. You want to comment on that as well? Or?
Yeah, I totally agree. You see, quite recently, the Eurofighter 2 discussion was there. And it's not starting because the 2 countries that are mainly involved do not want to have the other one the bigger part. And we have one European goal. So go there.
Yeah. And so how about like test beds or something? Because I heard like launching customers is something that needs to be increased and it makes complete sense. I think also the governments in general in Europe should be starting to think smarter. If you invest all the money in European companies, there's way more money coming available to also innovate and scale other kind of things. And that's what's done in the States basically. So but are there other things that are missing here, like test beds, or is that all related, in your opinion, to kind of the launching customer? Would that solve it all?
Yeah, for us, it's already that we can't get some of the components that we need to be made in Europe. Okay. There are no plants able to manufacture that yet, and whole Europe is happy that we are going to have one plant in 2027, which is already booked for 3 years. So nobody's having that advantage yet. Okay. If you do it great big, and otherwise you're still dependent on the rest. But
that seems quite like a big challenge as well. If there's one component missing that you actually need in order to move your product also further or to have it built because of the resources, how are you then? Are there other possibilities then, or how do you deal with that?
For the majority of the components that we use in our product, we design a chip, but the chip needs to be manufactured by TSMC, but they don't have that facility in Europe yet. So fortunately, they will start in Europe, so we can use that. And for the other components, we try to motivate European companies to really start manufacturing the stuff that we need as well. But sometimes there's also legislation, like we need the kind of filling material for the molding. It's only made in Japan.
Okay.
Only in Japan. So what happens if there's a fight going on in Asia? How do we get the stuff here? Nobody knows. But why is it not here? We have a lot of environmental regulation, so you can't manufacture it here. You can buy the products where it is made from, but not the product itself to make your product.
So how is this kind of dependencies? How is the government being made aware on that? Or is this is only the responsibility of the entrepreneurs and the companies?
It's definitely a responsibility of the government, but they don't see it at all at this moment.
But so okay, I mean, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so I think on the maybe on the customer side, so I think there we have to think global. Customers will always be across the globe, but what makes, for example, the US different from Europe is that in the US, when you see entrepreneurs start a company and then there is investments into the company, they scale, they stay in the region, they exit, and then themselves they will invest again into the ecosystem, and that creates a kind of flywheel which over time will create bigger and bigger companies and even OEMs, and then I think it will continue. But so what you see there is, for example, what is more stimulated there is that as an entrepreneur later you can invest back into the community, whereas the discussion in Europe, in different countries, so it's not Netherlands only, it's I think across the borders, is about, okay, how can we now tax as much as possible from that money that came from that exit, instead of stimulating to put it back into that ecosystem and actually accelerate a flywheel. And I think over time that will create a much bigger return.
Yes, a stimulus is necessary for rejuvenating basically new innovations by founders who exit. I totally agree. I think now with all the new tax rules, there's a really short-sighted idea about like how money is being made and what to do with it. Whether, I think if the government would make more guidelines on that, like, okay, if you have this percentage that you reinvest in certain, can be deep tech or other areas that, you want to focus on in the country, and you're not even taxed on that. If you're gonna invest it, it makes complete sense because you get a flying wheel, which is a win-win for everybody. I think new innovation gets a chance. People who have the money can have a chance of making even more money if they wish to. So something like that can be, I think, interesting. But we were talking a bit about these resources and the lack of resources in some situations. I know you have an issue with that. Axelera, you also create like the chips. Are there certain dependencies in the resources where you see problems in the nearby future if something cannot be delivered or material is not accessible or certain elements you can only receive from a certain country? Is that do you recognize that in your business as well?
Yeah, I think when you look at fabless companies that design chips, when you look at the full supply stack, the foundry itself is a big missing block in Europe right now. If we talk about like what industrial capability we have, we just can't produce right now 12 nanometer kind of chip like what we need right now for Metis. So we have to outsource it with TSMC in Taiwan, or we now have a redundant capability with other foundries in Korea. But long story short is that if you look at the full supply stack, we have the most advanced machine the humankind has invented with ASML. We have fantastic semiconductor companies that design chips, but we miss this supply stack layer of production of chips in Europe, so we can be fully resilient and autonomous in our production. This is, for me, something that's very critical in our overall supply chain today.
But how do you deal with its criticality? Like, do you always have a plan B for everything that you do, or?
That's a good question. Actually, our first chip was a TSMC 12 nanometer in Taiwan. and our second chip is made out of Samsung foundry. So it's we have this redundant or change of technology capability that permits us to adapt better, let's say, in terms of production. But we would love, of course, to have a production in Europe. That would be phenomenal for us.
Is that something realistically possible to, and also,
Well, the TSMC plan.
Should we wish for that? Or is it actually okay if it happens in 2 other places in the world, for example? Or
We don't really have a choice right now for our chips. So let's say if Dresden plant comes through in Germany, that would be great for us as Axelera. We would definitely, I think, be considering it. And you know, I put a lot of thought on what is sovereignty, and what is sovereignty is de-risking supply. That's number one, is how you de-risk supply, no matter what your industry is today, and this goes through all the layer of the supply stack.
Yeah.
So if we can produce in Europe, and this is really sovereign, then we should have a factory for that.
Okay, interesting. You all agree on that, or some different views, Mark?
I totally agree. We have the advantage that we are using global foundries here in Europe. We're on a bigger note, but yeah, it is about de-risking a supply chain, and the only way to permanently de-risk it is have something close to home within a territory you can rely on. We've seen with our American friends that might change very rapidly over time. So yeah, there needs to be a plan B, and that plan B next to Europe should be a place outside Europe on which we can trust for a longer time.
Okay, so is that the one thing that Europe should be doing tomorrow to compete globally, or are there other things that's as well?
I think the availability of the foundries, which was discussed, is let's say a year ago was not an issue at all. I think now it's more of a you need a plan B kind of story. But at the end of the day, I think today it's still possible to work with global different foundries. But I think where it is still lacking is, again, I think the fact that it's 26 different countries, so it's not one uniform platform. And I think the second one is that we also miss kind of a unified financial IPO market, because at the end of the day, it's not clear where you can actually go to continue keeping the company in Europe. Yeah. Except for exiting, and then exiting actually means selling to a US or an Asian company at the end of the day. So I think if we also want to keep everything in Europe, at least the companies that are really making and selling the products, the different parts of the stack, even though we work with global companies, which I think is still okay today, there is no view on how should we exit and stay within Europe. For example, an IPO market unified would be
so summarize a little bit. Europe should have a vision that is actionable. There should be a plan B. That might be a plan A for Europe, actually. Having investment done, starting to stimulate use of new innovation from a government perspective, even if it's a small portion of all Europe, in a kind of testbed situation where we have a launching customer kind of situation to stimulate new innovation. Making policies to make reinvestment of profits made by companies in the ecosystem. That's something that we've heard. So I think quite a lot of interesting stuff. I think a lot of interesting advice. I know we will be sharing this with governments too. So I hope they will take their their lessons learned from it, as do I right now. So we're coming already a little bit, in the ending phase. So I'm just curious, what we've heard today is clear. Europe does not lack technology. I think we have a lot of technology, really great people, really smart people. We just need to find how to access them better. The challenge is alignment between innovation, industry, and policy. And the stack exists. The opportunity now is to connect it, scale it, and deploy it. Just one final question to each one of you. And in one word, Europe's biggest deep tech opportunity. What do you feel like is the biggest opportunity for Europe at this moment?
Cooperation.
And what do you mean by that?
If we don't cooperate with all the countries, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so really stimulate the cooperation between Europe and European companies and countries. Okay, very good.
For me, a little bit similar, I guess. So there is the EU Inc. initiative,
Yeah.
which I have high hopes for, because essentially, I think that is what can help make it into an opportunity instead of us complaining about what is missing. I think that's really what can create the opportunity to do it right and make that Europe One Inc. Company.
I'm obviously fully aligned with what you guys just said, and I will add up simplicity, because we have always an ecosystem for funding, for projects, for administrative that is extremely complex. In Europe, in France, it's a disaster. So I think our governments needs to build a framework that is very simple for putting in place project funding, etc. That's very, very essential, on top of thinking out together.
Yeah.
And then I'll make myself off in a different way. You asked for one word. I'll give you twice 2 words.
Okay.
One is buy Qualinx. The second is One Europe.
Okay, well, I like that very much. Maybe last question, because you're all exhibitors here this week at the pavilion. So I'm also curious, what is your ambition? What do you hope to achieve this week?
We hope to find new customers wherever they're from. As long as they start to know us, we'll be very happy.
Okay, very good.
I think from an Axelera standpoint, we're 3-4 companies in the world that can deliver the kind of chip that we have for AI inference, making sure people put us in the map, understand who we are, what we do, brand awareness, and customer, of course, finding out new customer. That would be great.
Same, customers and brand awareness. Essentially, our product impacts consumer and mobile phone cameras, and I think the whole relevant part of the world is here.
That's good to know. So the right people are here at least. That's great.
For us, it's almost the same. We are going to manufacturing by the end of the year. This moment, we're looking for customers that want to do the field test with us. And that's what we hope to find here. More awareness of people that there is a good European product that can be used.
Fantastic.
And that is better than what you can get in other places in the world.
Yeah.
And that they're all willing to do the first field test with us.
Yeah, that's so amazing. That's why I'm, to be honest, I'm super proud to have you guys here at the pavilion with all your companies and all this amazing stuff, because I also believe that you guys have something really special that the world should hear about. So really want to thank you for all your contributions for today. And I wish you best of luck this week. We hope as well to make a lot of matches and help you to bring a lot of journalists and other people towards you to give you maximum exposure, to share your amazing stories with the world. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to see you grow and be even bigger next year when we're here again. So a big applause for you guys.